In 1999, him and his dad were in a house fire where his dad ran back into the building to save his life, and it was all over the news. His dad ended up being paralyzed in his left hand due to nerve damage after waking up from a coma.
Lorraine, neighbors, family, and the owner of the apartment building where the fire occurred all are saying Timothy Strain is a hero, even as he himself fights critical injuries he suffered while rescuing everyone in that burning apartment.
Whether, God bless him, God willing, he lives, and if he doesn't, he's still going to be a hero in my eyes and many people in his community.
Tim saved every single person that was in that apartment. He saved my daughter's life, he saved my grandson Tyler's life, and he saved his son's life. And he grabbed Tyler, handed him to Shannon, and then opened and pushed her out the door.
Timothy Strain had been badly injured by flames and smoke inhalation. Still, neighbors say his thoughts, even then, were only of the two young boys.
Even laying on the ground, when I looked down at him, he said to me, he says, you know, my boy's okay.
Now, Timothy Strain is in critical condition at University Hospital in Syracuse.
John is wondering most of the time that you're burned like that, you're automatically listed in critical condition. Do we know how he's feeling?
Burns over about 20 to 25% of his body. And along with that, they're concerned about what he inhaled, and the toxic fumes have affected his lungs and his breathing.
His body, after he rescued his children from a burning building in Waterford. Neighbors say Timothy Strain is a hero, risking his own life to take his two young children.
And the smoke was just so dark you couldn't even hardly see the house. I mean, it was real thick black smoke.
His life was saved in a weekend fire. He was saved by his dad, the woman's ex. That man is at a Syracuse hospital fighting for his life. I love him to save my son's life. He was brave. I hope I could have been that brave.
That brave man jumped through a wall of fire and a first-floor window with little Jacob cradled in his arms.
Thinking we couldn't find him. That's what I get upset about. I lost him for 2 seconds at the status quo fair, and my stomach went to the ground. I can't imagine not being able to find him.
The only concern right now is with Strain. He's still in critical condition at a burn center in Syracuse.
He's on a rotating bed. He's fighting hard at this point. They're trying to keep him quiet and subdued.
He was born with low birth weight, but he fought hard to be with his parents.
And now it's Tim's turn to fight and be here for him.
Good morning, it's Tim Strain. It is April 26th, 2025, and this is Glimpses of Eternity, part 3 of my testimony. And this part 3, I wanted to talk about the demons. You see, I was in hell. There was, how do I describe this? There was a hell for every sin I had ever committed. So, for an example, I explained in part 2 how I was in hell. I was underwater for days, and I didn't know why I wouldn't die. And I kept asking God, how am I still alive? And it was hell. I mean, if you know what it feels like to not breathe for days and suffer like that, it was hell. And then, to have, when I think I'm getting saved, to have a diver swim all the way down and, I think he's about to save me and cut my throat and make it even worse. It just kept getting worse and worse and worse. It was literally a hell. Well, completely different scenarios kept playing out. Like before that, I was in hell with that girl, her father who found me. They were going to cannibalize me, but the girl convinced her dad. That was another scenario. Like one would end, and then I would find myself in the next hell. And it would start all over again. And it was like I had to pay for each sin I committed. And I was going to stay in hell until I paid for all my sins. That's what it felt like to me anyway. So I'm just letting you guys know. Maybe had I made up for those sins and repented on earth, maybe I wouldn't have had to go through hell for it. But at that point in my life, 22 years old, I was burning a fire. I did not make up or repent for any of these sins. Half of them I probably didn't even realize was a sin or that I had done anything wrong at that point in my life. So let me just give you a quick little background on this next hell story that I'm going to tell you. So I have a family camp. It's up in the Adirondack Mountains. It's actually on Chazy Lake in Dannemora, New York. The name of the camp is called Devil's Delight. Now this camp, it's been in my family since the early 1800s. Or not early 1800s, late 1800s. My great grandfather had acquired this land right on the lake in exchange for his service in the Civil War. And the camp has been passed down to the oldest boy generation after generation after generation. I believe my kids, I think, are the 8th generation now to enjoy the place. I have a grandson, so 9 generations now have, had access to this land that my great grandfather, his name was Arza Turner, he, basically had to kill his brothers in Civil War to get the land. I don't know if that's why he named the place Devil's Delight, but that was always my take on it, that how many of his fellow Americans did he have to kill to acquire this spot? Is such a gem. It's so beautiful. It is totally God's country. But how many did he have to kill to get it? And that's a whole other, I can make a 2-hour video just on that, on the history of that, and how did he find his way back from Virginia all the way up to Dannemora near Plattsburgh in New York, almost near the Canadian border, actually. It's only like 20 miles south of the border. But anyway, this camp has been, as you can imagine, being in my family all these years and how beautiful it is there. It has been an absolute gem to me. It has been so important, this place. I put the value of this place above the value of my relationships with people. I put it before God. I sinned involving this place because I put so much value on it and I made it so important. And what is it really? It's a material thing. I can't take it with me to the next life. It's not important. Well, that was one of my hells. I had to pay for it. So even back then, when I was 22, my father would let me have a weekend up there with my friends, and we would party and, get drunk, and all my friends would really look forward to going up there and, having a weekend, and I would use it against them. Like, I would be like, if I got in a fight with a friend when I was like 18, 19 years old, I would say things to them like, well, then you're not going to come to camp this year. You're not going to be invited. I would use it to actually control my friends when I was that age, when I was 18, like, to get them to do what I want them to do. So, and not only that, like, no matter what the financial burdens were on my family to keep the place, I made it so they knew they could never get rid of it, because they could never sell the place or use it for, if they were ever in a position where they had to, I would never allow that. I would be like, no, we can never get rid of that. What are you, crazy? I'd make them feel bad. Like, What right do you have? Your ancestors, gave you the place. You don't have, I don't know. I put too much value on the place, put it that way. So, anyway, my sin, so my hell that I find myself in. And I'm going to let you know, because nothing I say here is going to give you indefinitive proof of God and the afterlife. It's still going to come down to faith no matter what. And I'm not going to withhold anything from you, like procedures that are being done to me at the time, that, like I told you before, like when the diver came down and he cut my throat. I was also in reality, where my body was at the burn center. They were cutting holes in my throat, making the trach. And, and I had this feeling that I was underwater, which, that's the feeling of not being able to breathe. So it makes sense why my mind would think that. Well, I'm not going to withhold any of that from anybody, because if that's what you want to believe, that, my, all this happened to me in my mind just because of what my body was going through, and that God's not real. And if that's what you want to believe, then that's what you believe. That's your belief. It's always going to come down to faith. If God wanted to prove himself to you, he can, like that. He doesn't want to give you indefinitive proof like that, because he wants you to find him on your own. He wants you to have faith. He wants you to seek him. He wants, so it's going to come down to that. But let's get into the story. So anyway, at my camp, there's a porch and there's a table there. And let me explain one more background thing. The cabin, the original cabin that was built in the 1800s by my great-great-great-grandfather, Arza Turner, still stands. We've built additions onto it. My great-grandfather had built several additions onto it. And but the original cabin from the 1800s, which is now the kitchen and one little back bedroom, are the original log cabin from the 1800s. Has 6-seater, man. It lasts forever. Over 150 years at this point. That that cabin part was the part that always, I don't know, in my heart was the valuable part. I loved sleeping in that one room. I didn't want to sleep in the room with plywood walls. I wanted to sleep in the old log cabin part of the camp, with the old room, with the old, and get that rustic feel. But anyway, there's a porch on the camp, and there's a table out there, and the porch is all windows, and you can see the lake and everything out there. So my friends, when we were 18, 19, 20, whatever that age, we spent a lot of time on the porch drinking, hanging out. That was the party spot at the camp. So in this particular situation, my friends weren't really my friends. They were demons, and they were disguised as my friends. They looked like my friends. I thought they were my friends at the time, but looking back on it, they were just demons. They just disguised themselves as my friends as a way to add more torture to what they were doing already to me. So they actually were going to steal whatever was valuable in my camp. In this realm, I couldn't really, it wasn't anything specific. There was just something within the wood. There was one piece of wood somewhere in the cabin part that was just worth millions of dollars. And my friends, well, the demons that I thought were my friends, were after it. And they had to burn down the rest of the camp to destroy the rest of the evidence. And the rest of the evidence included me, because it was my camp, my family's camp, and they could not get away with stealing this. It would not happen over my dead body, put it that way. And that's the way it was going to be. Over my dead body. Literally, they were going to kill me. So I was strapped They had me strapped down to the table. Again, in reality, I'm thirsty. I've been burned. My throat was burned. I'm not allowed to have anything to drink for months, as a burn victim. And I'm sitting there strapped to the table while they're drinking beers and ice cold beers and teasing me and being like, I bet you wish you could have a sip of this. It's so refreshing. And I'm like, oh, my throat's so dry. And they got me tied literally with my arms strapped to the sides, like stretched out, my legs stretched out, all on the porch table there. And I remember looking out the window at the lake at night. It was nighttime, and they're just laughing, partying, having a great time. And then the whole camp is burning down. Everything's on fire. They're telling me, like, we had to do it. We got to hide the evidence. Nothing personal. It's just that, this camp's more important. It's more valuable. Whatever they were after was more important than me, more important than our friendship, more important than anything else in life, which is basically the way I treated that place, the camp. And now it's being done to me, where people who, I thought they're people who care about me, are putting whatever is valuable with the camp before me, ahead of my own life, ahead of my own well-being. So they got me strapped to this table, and they're literally like a cheese grater peeling the skin off of my legs. They're taking the hide off of me. Okay? Now me and my friend, the friend who's doing this to me, we'll call it a dream, but I really don't believe it was a dream. I was in the next realm, but my friend that was peeling the skin off of me and him had hunted a lot too. And we've skinned and, gutted many deer and animals together. So that might have played into also why he was the one that they picked to do this to me. And when I say they, I'm saying the demons, the devil, whatever, whoever was trying to torment me. He peeled the skin off of me. I'm in immense pain, suffering. All this is going on while the camp is burning down with me tied to the table, which eventually they planned I would die and they would walk out with whatever, that one piece of wood that was like gold that was somewhere in the cabin walls, and the rest of the place would be burnt down with me in it, and I would be gone. And they would make off with the profits of whatever. So, at the same time that my friend is basically skinning me, I was having procedures being done on my body at the burn unit in the hospital, skin grafts. If you're not familiar with skin grafts, that's where they remove skin from one part of your body. In my case, my thighs, my quarters, all the way around each thigh. Four sides of each thigh. They took big, long strips of skin, and they put them on my shoulders, my back. Basically, my upper back and my shoulders are all skin grafted. I was about 25% burned. It's mostly my shoulders and my back. My upper back are the grafted areas. But I just want to throw that in so you guys know all the details. Because these procedures were going on, and I know that some of you are going to say that's the only reason why this was going on in your head and blah, blah, blah. But the creativity, I guess, the evil, the graphic nature of the demons and the things that they had done, the things that I had seen in this, if you want to call it a dream world, were so intense and crazy that I know for a fact that my mind would never, ever be able to create something that intense and crazy. So that's up to you. If you believe me on that, or if you just want to, I think deep down, no matter what, there's people that are going to believe in God and have faith in God, and there's people that aren't. And maybe that's why there's a book of life, and some names are in it and some aren't. God has his chosen people. Did he choose them, or did we have free will to choose him? It's both in a way, because there's no time. I'll tell you that. That's the one thing I learned about this realm. There is no time. Time does not exist on any level in this realm. I couldn't tell you how long I was there. I couldn't tell you if I was there for half an hour or 3 years, you know. And honestly, after the whole thing with, being underwater and my testimony part 2, when I talked about that, when I came out of the coma, I actually didn't even know that I was burned in a fire. I really believed that I had drowned, and that was why I was in the hospital. And it was because where I was, where my mind was, where my spirit was, where my being was, even though my body was laying there on a bed, I didn't know that. Where I was underwater for days. So that was my reality. So when I woke up, I didn't know the difference between what was actual, like what really happened, and what happened in my mind, or what happened in the realm I was in, because that's how real it was. When I first woke up from the coma, I had thought that I had drowned, and they said, "No, Tim, you were burned in a fire." And I instantly remembered that health scenario from camp, and I mouthed the words, "Jeff burnt down the camp." And even to this day, my parents, well, my mother, because my father's not alive, could testify that that was one of the first things that I said when I had came out of the coma, that Jeff had burnt down the camp. It was even more real than me talking right now, making this video right now, talking to you people. It was more real than that. Put it this way, it's 25 years later. And all these videos I've made from memory. Not one bit of rehearsing or anything like that. I'm literally just going off the memory. I haven't even really thought about what I wanted to talk about. I literally said the next video it's going to be about the demons and about the different hells I was in. And that's all the, thought or pre-preparation that I had put into making this video. It's basically like, all right, I got time. Hit record and just tell the story. And that's what I've been doing. So I'm sorry if it doesn't all come together perfectly and stuff, but I want it to be as authentic as possible. I don't want it to be, this isn't about creativity. This is about what actually happened and what the facts are. And that's it. And that's all I'm going to tell, because that's all God wants me to tell. That's the deal we have. He said, tell your story, and he's going to do the rest. I don't have to promote it. I don't have to try to share it on every platform or send it to every person I know. None of that. I have another YouTube channel where I do things like that, but this channel would have never happened even. None of these videos would have ever been made had God not wanted it done and pushed me to do it. Because he literally, got me inspired to do this. This is his thing, not mine. That was one of the things. I was in hell. I was at my camp, this place I loved, that I put ahead of God, ahead of everyone, ahead of my family, ahead of my friends, ahead of people. I used it to control people. I used it to sin, bottom line. And the camp is the place the demons ended up using to hurt me. The fact that it was a place that was sacred and important to me, and that my friends were my friends, not just strangers or evil people. No, these were, in my own mind, they were my friends, because the demons disguised themselves as my best friends to hurt me even more than if it was strangers. And they're burning me alive, tied to a table, while partying, while tormenting me, teasing me, and stealing from me, and doing basically the things that I deserved for my sin. So that was one more hell that I was in, was the camp. And didn't even end there. I remember even after I realized that I had died, the camp was gone. I don't know if I had woken up or what happened. I think if I remember right, I had fell asleep and I woke up for a minute, and it was morning and the whole camp was gone. It was just ashes, and I was gone, but I was still there. I knew I was a spirit, because this is the weird thing. I remember being like, okay, I'm dead now. I'm just a spirit now. And I'm walking down the Northway from, up in near Plattsburgh where my camp is. And I'm walking down the side of the road to go home. And I remember clear as anything thinking in my head, why do I have to walk if I'm dead? Can't spirits just transport back to where I want to go? Can't I just think of where I want to be and I'll be there? Why do I have to walk? But there I was, a spirit walking down the road with this long ass walk ahead of me. But looking back on it now, at 47 years old with my hip problems, I'd be happy just to be able to walk. I'd walk all that way just to be able to walk again. So pray for me that my surgeries go well, and that I, get healed up and can walk again, because this really sucks having to use a wheelchair for the last 2 years basically, and a walker to get around. So yeah, my friends, they burnt down the camp. They stole whatever was profitable. They killed me in the process. And this all happened at the camp, the place I loved the most. And it was not a pleasant experience. That was another hell. There was many hells. I would say probably a dozen or so that I went through. I believe that we can go through our hell, or we can make up for our sin on earth. We don't have to go through hell to make up for our sins. You can repent. You can talk to God, pray to God. If you feel guilt for your sin and you're truly sorry about what you've done, and you talk to God and you say, God, Jesus, how can I make up for what I've done? He'll give you the answer. And you do your repentance, you do what what you and him come up with, and you're forgiven. You won't have to go through hell for that sin. And believe me, you don't want to go through hell for that sin. Do not learn the hard way. Heed my words. I went through what I went through. I'm hoping and praying I went through to spare even one person from going through. Even if I save one person from just one of their hells, it would be worth it. I don't know what happens if you go to heaven afterwards, after you make up for each sin, or you experience each hell for each sin. Then you you become a better person, more educated spirit. I don't know how that works. All I know is what happened to me after all my hells. And that's probably going to end up being another video, but because we're almost at 30 minutes now, and you know how I don't like to record more than 30 minutes. But what happened was I was crying one day. After what they did was they moved me on Christmas Eve. I was not ready to go to the regular wing of the hospital. I was in the intensive care burn unit, and I needed to be there. I could not do anything yet. I couldn't get up. I couldn't go to the bathroom. I couldn't even press the nurse button by myself. So I should not have left intensive care. Unfortunately, on Christmas Eve, they had a family, I believe, out of Watertown that had a house fire, and there was like 6 family members or something that got burned very badly. And, several of the members of the family were children, and the burn unit in Syracuse only has so much room, so it's based off of priority. So, they needed the burn unit more than I did, even though I still needed it desperately and was not ready at all to go where they sent me. They really, I guess, had no choice. But what had happened after that was insane. I ended up with like the worst nurse in the world. She was having a real issue. This nurse was the worst nurse in the world, and she was having a real issue with having to work on Christmas Eve. And I had this Job's vest that I had to wear all the time. It keeps your skin grafts smooth while they're healing, so you don't get bumpy, messed up skin. It's very important that you have one of these vests on, and you got to wear it all the time. They're really uncomfortable. And I had nerve damage in my hand. My whole arm wasn't working. I had nerve damage in both hands. I couldn't use my hands. I was newly disabled, and I had just woken up from a coma. I couldn't do anything. This nurse threw the vest at me, said, "You put it on yourself." Like, I was coming from intensive care where, like, literally, if I farted in my sleep, the nurses would rush in there and, put powder on my ass, and literally was being pampered. But, I went from that, even though they were taking such great care of me in that intensive care unit, to me at the time, not having the comparison of the other floor, I still thought, oh, I'm in bad shape. Like, this is, I was not comfortable at all in the burn unit either. But when they moved me to the regular floor and I was being treated that way, my mother, she was trying to arrange all this stuff with family. Like, literally my entire family came out on Christmas to the hospital to celebrate Christmas. And my mom was so busy making food and doing all this stuff, and here I am having a meltdown and an emergency on Christmas Eve at the hospital, crying, trying to get her to come to save me, because they literally, the nurse just left me in a chair. I hadn't even been on sitting up for more than 20 seconds at a time at that point. And my recovery, I'd only been out of the coma like a week or something, not even. But, yeah, this nurse was a real, what. But, there was this one point, though, where I was down on that floor. They had moved me. It had been a couple of days. And I was asking God, I cried. I actually lost it. I got super pissed off at God, and I was mad. I was mad at God. I said, why didn't you take me? Like, I didn't want to live. Now I'm disabled and I only got one hand and I'm a joke. I'm half the man I used to be, and I didn't want to live. And I was extremely mad at God. And in my despair, I kid you not, I don't know if God himself came down and wrapped his arms around me and gave me a hug, but I literally felt like this peace come over me. I felt like a baby in the arms of a loving mother, or I don't even know how to describe it. It was like I was in the arms of an angel. And the feeling, the peace that came over me was undescribable. It was the closest feeling I had ever felt to God in my life. Even more than when Jesus handed me the cup and said, drink this, and it was his blood. Even more than that, I knew that I was in the presence of God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. That peace I felt was incredible. And all I could feel after that, even though I just a minute ago was literally swearing and pissed off and angry and mad at God and yelling and pissed. And why did you not take me? And why did you do this to me? How could you do this to me? To a feeling of gratitude that you loved me, you saved me from hell, you saved me from all these things. I could still be in hell. I could have lost both legs, I could have lost both arms, and it would still be better than going to hell. The Bible is saying that says if your left hand causes you to commit sin, cut it off and throw it in the fire, because it's better to enter heaven with one hand than not to enter at all, is so true. I actually said that before the fire. You know, on 4th Street in Waterford, we were right down the road from St. Mary's Church. I used to walk from our apartment that burnt down to St. Mary's Church there in Waterford. And I remember in church one time, I was sitting there and I was thinking about my sins. At the time, I was a partier, I was drinking. I think I dabbled a little bit with some drugs, nothing major at that time, maybe a little bit of cocaine and weed. Not much, though. Like, the cocaine might have been like a 1 or 2 times I tried it at that point in my life. And the weed was a pretty regular thing, but the weed, it's not, I don't really consider weed a sin, because it's natural and God, it comes from God. I mean, you can abuse anything, and abusing anything or putting anything in front of God is a sin. But in many cases, people who use cannabis, that's not the case. But that's a whole other topic. I'm not going to get into that. But at that time, I was praying and I was feeling guilty, and I was at St. Mary's Church, and I was thinking about my sins, and I actually remember saying to God that I want to go to heaven. You take over, God. You're in control. I don't want free will. You take it. I said, if my left hand is going to cause me to go to hell and not end up in heaven with you, then take it. Cut it off. Take it. I don't care about a hand. I just want to be in heaven. I just want to make it there with you. Do whatever you have to do to me, Lord, to make sure I end up in heaven. That was my prayer that day in church. I was probably 22 years old, around that age, maybe 21, because I had just turned 22 in September when the fire happened in November. I had only been 22 for like a month, a little over a month. So, I said, I don't want free will. Take it from me. And next thing I knew, not even a week or two later, I was burned in a fire. Nerve damage in my hand. I lost the use of this hand. I shit you not. I can't make this shit up. There was several other hells that I went through. I'm going to have to make a part 4 still, telling you more about some of the other hell experiences, and then tying everything up, wrapping everything up together into, helping basically to analyze and make sense of it all, more so than I have been trying to already as I go along. I know it's hard. I'm not the greatest storyteller in the world. I'm doing my best. Like I said, it's all from memory. So if it was a creative thing, it would be easier because I could make it make perfect sense and, but I'm just telling it the way it happened. So everything that has happened, I haven't made 100% sense of yet. I still am analyzing things about that experience and putting together pieces of the puzzle. And I probably will for the rest of my life. And if you guys have any insights on it, either you think, oh, wait a minute, I think the Lord was trying to tell you this when that happened to you, let me know in the comments. Feel free to engage and give your inputs, I created this channel not only to share my experience and to, give my testimony, but also I created it so that other people can share their experiences. And mainly, I created it so we can explore NDEs and life after death experiences across the board, like throughout different cultures, different religions, different races, backgrounds. I want to explore and find commonalities, between Hindus, Christians, Muslims, whatever, who have had NDEs, and compare and contrast and see what is actually similar and what is, unique. Because I believe that there probably will be a lot of commonalities that people don't expect. And it might expose areas where we could be wrong. I mean, studying the afterlife is fairly a new science. Even 40 years ago, it was very taboo to even mention an NDE. People would just say you're crazy. And that was a lot why back in 99, I didn't immediately just tell everyone what happened to me, because I didn't want to end up in a nut house, Any other hell experiences that I can talk about off the top right now without at least thinking a little bit about it, because it was 25 years ago. But I did want to get that one out and tell you guys about it. And, so I told you about the when I was underwater for days, that experience. I told you about when I was like in that deserted, empty, like Arctic, barren place with the cannibal family. And I told you about when I was up at camp with my friends and they were literally murdering me and stealing my camp or whatever was valuable in my camp. There was another one where I was with my son. He was a baby at the time, and I was very protective of him in this realm. And we had an apartment. I had lost him. I didn't know where he was for a long time. I had been looking and trying to find him. Somebody had kidnapped him. This is all in my mind while I was in the coma, not in reality. Just throwing that out there. But yeah, and I think it was a lot because I couldn't find him in the fire, so my mind was worried about him. But I didn't even know if he was okay really when I had gone into the fire. But so I was looking for him, trying to find him, and that was a whole hell experience on its own that lasted a long time. But I finally did find him. We had this apartment. It was like the end of the world. Like, you couldn't trust anybody. Everyone was like a demon out to get you. And you never knew. Even the people that, at this point in my mind, even the people that were my friends or family could really be demons disguised as them. So I wasn't trusting anybody. I had serious trust issues. And unfortunately, at this point, I was so afraid and I had such severe trust issues that I did not even trust the Lord. And what happened was, I was in a skyscraper in like New York City, and we had an apartment. Me and my son were in it. Every apartment had a trap door in the floor, and then another trap door in the ceiling. And through the trap doors, you could go up or down into the apartment that's either below or above the one we were in. So me and my son were there. We're being quiet because we knew demons or people were after us. They were trying to kidnap him. And I was just in a very severe state of fear. That's where the demons want to keep you. They want you to be afraid. The feeling of fear, intense fear that doesn't go away, is the worst feeling in the world. It's a worse feeling than pain. It's worse than any other feeling. In fact, the opposite of love is not hate. Everyone thinks the opposite of love is hate. It's not. The opposite of love is fear. Because without God's love, all that's left is fear. God's love will literally take away anything you have to be afraid of. So anyway, I was afraid. And I'm in this skyscraper, skyrise, whatever you want to call it. This tall building with several apartments. And I'm in one, I don't know where, maybe in the middle of the building. Who knows what floor? Maybe the 20th floor? I don't know. Me and my son. He's a baby at the time, like a 2-3-year-old toddler or something. So this building catches fire from the bottom up. And it's burning, and it's burning its way up. And the fire finally reaches the apartment below the apartment that I'm in with my son. And the people who are below me are pounding on their ceiling, on my floor, on that trap door, which I have locked. There's a lock on it on the floor. And they're saying, let us in, our place is on fire, we're going to die, let us in, and they're banging on it. And I'm thinking in my head, they're lying, they're demons, they're just trying to trick me. I mean, all this I've gone through already with the demons. I was petrified, I had no trust, I was just in a state of fear. And I'm like, I can't let them in, I'm scared. And I knew that they were going to die if I didn't let them in, but I was still too afraid. I felt I had to protect my son, and I had to protect him, and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't open the door. And in doing that, I guess I didn't trust God, because there was a lesson to be learned at the end of each hell, especially this one. Because what had happened then, after the people in the apartment finally stopped banging, and I believe they must have probably perished, what happened next was the fire reached the floor I was on with my son, and we were next to be burned up. And what did I do? I did the same thing the person in the apartment below me did. I banged on the trap door that was in my ceiling to the apartment above me, and I just prayed that the people upstairs would open it and let us come up and save our lives. But you know that's not going to happen, that they're not going to let me in. And why? Why do you think they're not going to let me in? What's the lesson that God wanted to teach me? Because I didn't let the people below me in. So what happens, what you do to others, is going to happen to you. And my mother likes to say karma. That's not a good thing. That's not Christian or Catholic or whatever. That's a Hindu thing. And I agree, the actual saying of karma, but the idea of it, like do to others what you do to others, it's going to come back on you. That part of it is true. It really is true. If you hurt others, if you wrong others, it's going to come back to you tenfold. Whether it comes back to you on earth in your lifetime or in the next life, you're going to pay for it. Period. You're going to pay for it. The only way that you can avoid going to hell and paying for each sin is to ask Jesus for forgiveness, to really truly feel remorse in your heart, and not just because you're afraid of hell and you're fearing for your own safety and for your own self-preservation, but an actual feeling of sorrow for the people or the individuals that you hurt. Actually feeling bad for that person and feeling bad for what you did and feeling bad for disappointing God. That is genuine remorse. Not, I'm afraid of going to hell, so I'm sorry. No, that doesn't count. If that's your only reason for being sorry is because you don't want to go to hell, you're not going to get spared from it. I realized really quick that asking God of anything is pointless. God, it says right in the Bible, God already knows what your needs are before you ask him. Jesus said, remember that the Father knows your needs before you ask him. So why do people always go, oh, please, Jesus, do this for me or do that for me, do that? That's not what God wants to hear. Having true faith, you wouldn't act like that. You wouldn't pray that way. If you had true faith, you would just thank him. Thank you for providing that. Even if he hasn't provided it yet, just knowing and having faith that he will, and just thanking him shows that you have faith and that you trust him. So stop begging him for things and start thanking him for what you have, and even for what you don't have, for what he will provide. And Another thing I learned, if you do want something from him, for yourself, don't ask for it for yourself. If you're going to ask him for anything, ask for others. Like, for an example, I want to have a successful hip surgery. The best way for that to happen is for me to pray to the Lord for other people who are having hip pain or in need of surgery to have a successful hip surgery and for an end to their pain, and to genuinely pray and be concerned for others over myself. That's how, if you want to call it karma, that's how it works. I I think my mother just has a problem with the word karma, but the idea of it, what it actually, because Jesus himself said, do unto others as you would want done to you. Love your enemies, love your neighbors as I have loved you, is what he commanded us. So, and I've had priests too, Catholic priests, actually tell me, you want your hip pain to end, pray for other people who have hip pain. I believe it. And these are the secrets. These are the things I learned from my experience. And I'm just touching the tip of the iceberg. I have so much stuff. That's why I created a whole channel, so I can make videos and stuff. And I hope you guys are listening. I hope that, these videos are at least, I don't want to use the word entertaining, but interesting, I guess. Interesting enough that you would want to watch them and think about them and get involved in the conversation. And, that'd be great if this channel could end up becoming some type of Bible study or philosophical debates or conversations even, or, I've expressed, what I would like to see happen with the channel. But like I said, it's in God's hands. It's God's will. It's his channel. What he wants to do with it. This was all his idea. He's the one that wanted me to share the story. He's the one that had me go through everything I went through in this life, the fire and everything. He's the one that came to me. He's the one. This whole thing is all him. So where this channel goes, what the future of this channel, it's all in his hands. So I don't even want to say it's going to be this or it's going to be that, because it's really in his hands. And I'm leaving it open, to whatever is in his will for the future of the channel, and what happens with it, as far as whether it gains traction and popularity and people like it and whatever it grows into. The only thing I promised the Lord was that I was going to share the story of my NDE crossing over in 1999 when I was burned in the house fire after saving my kids. That's all I prayed hard and long for years about it, and the Lord literally told me, just put it on video, say exactly what happened, don't even think about it, just say a prayer before you record. The Holy Spirit will guide your words, and you just put it out there, and that he would do the rest. And I have faith in him that that'll happen. Whether he works through you people, and you people help share the video, share the message, tell other people about the channel. If that's the way God works through you people, then that's how he does it. I don't question his methods. I just have faith that this channel will spread. And it already is. It's already the videos. I put out a short and it ended up getting 1,200 views in one day. Now, I've never in my life gotten that many views in a day on anything ever. I don't even know 1,200 people. I doubt I even know 500 people, to be honest. So yeah, I went way over and my battery died. Well, this video is way over what I wanted it to be. It's like an hour, so I really got to wrap it up. But to sum up, the demons, they're experts at tormenting you. They know exactly everything about you. They know exactly how to maximize the torture and the torment. And every sin that is unrepented, there'll be a hell scenario that you'll have to go through and play out, and you'll remain in that specific hell scenario until the lesson is learned, however long that takes. Could be forever for some people. Some people may not have the ability to feel guilt if they don't have a conscience. I don't know. All I know is that I don't want to go back there. I'd prefer to make up for my sins here on earth and, be with Jesus when I die. But, like I said, everything's been from memory. I haven't done any rehearsing or really thinking about what I'm going to say. So there's definitely going to be a part 4, probably even a part 5, maybe even a part 6. I don't know. But I hope you have a better understanding of what these hell scenarios were like, at least what they were like for me. They're very personalized. So, I doubt anybody would have the exact same experience I do because they're tailored to your own personal life and your own personal life experiences. So anyway, we're going to wrap this one up. And there's definitely, like I said, going to be more parts to my testimony. So this was part 3. Thanks for waiting. I know it's been a while since I had, uploaded any videos to the channel. I've been working on this one, and it takes forever, to be honest. I'm not the best at making videos yet, and I'm doing the best I can, but we'll see you guys with part 4. So anyway, this is Tim, and this is Glimpses of Eternity, and this was part 3 to my testimony. Oh, and if you're not subscribed, subscribe now, and also help me out by liking this video and commenting. If you comment underneath, this helps the algorithm to spread it to more people so that more people can hear my testimony. I appreciate that. Thank you for your love and support for me and for the channel. God bless you, and you guys have a wonderful day. Peace.